Welcome to our public meeting zoning bylaw amendment in person and live streamed electronically Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. Our opening of our meeting, land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located, this meeting is being held, is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Introduction. The purpose of this public meeting, is to hear the following application for zoning bylaw amendment. ZB 23-002 McConnell Leach. The planner will provide a brief overview of the file. The applicant will be given an opportunity to explain the need for the zoning bylaw amendment. Then any person or public body in opposition and then in favor to the application will be heard. If a person or public body does not make oral or written submissions at a public meeting, or does not make written submissions to the Township of Montague before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you wish to be notified of the decision of council with respect to the below listed application, you must submit a written request to the clerk, or you must sign the attendance list provided at tonight's meeting. This will also entitle you to be advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing. The clerk must provide notice of council's decision to all those who request a copy within 15 days after the day the bylaw is passed. An appeal to the tribunal may be filed with the clerk of the Township of Montague by any party entitled to do so, no later than 20 days after the day that the notice of decision was given. The notice of appeal must set out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied by the required fee. And now, if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. So I'll have approval of the agenda. Suggested motion is that the agenda be adopted as presented. All in favor? And that's carried. So our application is ZB 23002 McConnell Leach. So now I'll have the planner do a review and propose bylaw amendment.
Good evening, council. Excuse me. Good evening, council, members of the public. So the property that is the subject of this zoning bylaw amendment is a vacant 39.6 hectare parcel of land located with frontage on both Birchall and McConnell Road. This property is currently the subject for a severance application to create a 2.28 hectare lot for residential purposes. This lot will have frontage on McConnell and Birchall Road, and the retained parcel will be approximately 37.31 hectares in size and is vacant. So as part of the application process for this severance, due to the presence of bedrock on the subject lands, it was required for the applicant to obtain an aggregate impact assessment. The applicant did so, and the results and recommendations of that assessment were to increase the rear and interior side yard setbacks for this severed lot from 7.5 to 30 meters. And the rationale for that increased setback is in case the bedrock on the retained land, if it was ever to be extracted or an aggregate operation undertaken, that it would provide a suitable buffer between a dwelling on the severed lot and the potential aggregate operation on the retained land. It's unlikely that that aggregate operation would be very extensive because there is significant residential development in that vicinity. But this recommendation did stem from a professional report obtained, and the condition in the severance application recommended by staff at the township was to change that setback distance to 30 meters. There were no comments of concern received. Enbridge Gas did send a response. They have no objections, as did RVCA. No concerns from them either. So it's kind of a short report. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Yeah.
I just have a couple. I guess the setback thing I'm trying to understand. Like this plot is pretty far from the current quarry that's there right now. I guess I'm trying to understand, like, right now it's 7 meters is what you can build off of from the back of that land. How does that extra 23 meters make a massive difference as far as that goes? Because I'm trying to understand that, because we're already at that sort of threshold. So like, what's the?
So this setback doesn't stem from the pit that's in existence a distance away. This setback would be with respect to the bedrock designation that the entirety of this property is located in. There's quite an extensive bedrock designation in that area. And again, it's not likely that it's going to be extracted, or at least a large scale operation. But if it were, there is an area, and there is provisions within the provincial policy statement, to protect aggregate operations, because there are not a lot of available places to conduct that sort of operation in a built-up residential area. So
is this something that they could then start digging at that bedrock, like right near the land? Is that, or they still have to stay like a good distance away?
If someone were to want to propose an aggregate operation, whether it's a pit or a quarry, they do have to go through ARA licensing, and there's a lot of studies that are required in order to support that. Everything from land use compatibility, hydrogeological, vibration and noise studies, traffic studies. So there's a lot of legwork that would be required in order to even support that potential development. But there is a potential, and so for that reason, the report writer deemed it necessary to protect that potential, and so that's why the increased setback was determined by the report writer.
Okay, thanks.
What's the normal distance usually between a quarry and a residential dwelling?
The normal is 500 meters from a quarry to a dwelling on a nearby property.
This one here, you're gonna have call it 1,500 feet from the house is the closest they could have a quarry, in theory. 1,500 feet, a meter is
You're
I'm just
asking me to
saying,
do
because
math.
most people
A
use
quarry-
feet, so
a
that's why I'm
quarry-
just- it seems like a long distance based on the size of the property. It seems
Yeah.
like the quarry would have to be at the far.
A quarry would not be feasible there. A quarry wouldn't be an appropriate aggregate activity. We'd be if it ever happened, it would be a small scale pit
Okay.
at best. Any more questions? And I believe the applicant is online. I'm not sure if he would like to speak.
Hello, yeah, it's Sean Leach here. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. Just
got it on your screen.
you got me there?
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Leach.
Hi there. Yeah, we don't really have much to add, other than this is just a part of the fulfillment of the conditions for the severance to proceed. So we're just trying to follow the recommendations from the study and get the severance completed so we can build a dwelling there hopefully this summer. Everything's kind of lined up for that. So yeah, we don't really have much else to add other than we're trying to proceed with what's required of us to get the severance done. And like you said, the chance that it would ever be developed it's not zero, but it's close as close as zero as you could get. It's family land, and yeah, that's kind of all I have. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me, or probably not.
So following this meeting, a report will be prepared for the next council meeting that will sort of encompass all of the comments received this evening, summarize, and a draft bylaw will be presented. And I guess
Yep, so our adjournment is suggested motion that the public meeting adjourn at 6:12 PM. All in favor? That's carried. Into our regular meeting of council in person and live streamed electronically, Tuesday, May 16th. I first want to note that National Public Works Week is May 21st to 27th, and I want to give a big congrats to our local public works crew. Thank them for everything that they do through the winter and through the summer seasons, and their work is greatly appreciated. So our opening of our meeting, land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located and this meeting is being held is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. I'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. So adoption of agenda, moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that the regular meeting of council agenda dated May 16th, 2023 be approved as amended this date, to remove John McTavish as a delegation and to move items 8C and 8F from information to action items. All in favor? And that's carried. If you have any disclosure of interest, you can declare it now at any time during the meeting. Minutes of our previous meetings. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Kenny, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council, May 2nd, 2023 be approved as presented. All in favor? And that's carried. Any business arising from our previous meeting? Okay. So we have no delegation and deputations. Our report of municipal officers. First report is Fire Chief Miles Greer for our fire tanker pumper purchase.
Thank you very much, Reeve Jennings, Council. So tonight I bring to you the report for the pumper tanker. So the report has been in front of you. So basically, I'm here for some questions. I do understand that this truck has come over budget a little bit, so I would certainly explain why that is. So basically, my report's laid out, and I'm here for any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
It's a lot of money, but that's just the way they are right now, so.
And I truly agree, it is a lot of money, and since the COVID, trucks have, almost tripled in price in some places. But I truly believe a pumper tanker for this community and the growth that we're having is the best way to go with this community. It's got many versatile options. And the biggest one I wanted to bring to your attention was the rental. And when I say that, I just wanted to clarify it a little bit for you. If something was to happen to your frontline pumper and you don't have another one, then you have to go rent one, which is just out of this world cost-wise. So this puts a second pumper into your fire hall that's a certified truck. So there's no rental fees there. And also you can run multiple calls at the same time. So I truly believe this is the best option. And certainly this council has supported the fire department through the years I've stood on the podium here. And hopefully we can do that in the future. Yes.
What's the lifespan of these trucks?
So the lifespan of it is 20 years. So on your frontline trucks, so your pumper and your tankers a 20-year lifespan. Your other trucks, you can go outside of the 20 years because they're not a suppression equipment. And that is judged by the fire underwriters. They say 20 years. You can go longer, But what happens is if you go outside of the scale of the 20 years, they could actually come to your community and say, your truck's over 20 years, now we can raise your insurance in your community. So we like to try and stay in the 20-year mark.
Yeah, I mean, we have good support for our fire department, and when, you know, even on the weekend when we had the fire open house and all the trucks were out and they're all nice and shiny and looking great and everything else, and I think people going by and looking and seeing that, I mean, they should get some safety, some feel of safety, especially knowing all the guys that were there too as well. That's great to see that too as well, and you know, I mean, these are the cost of keeping our residents safe if these things happen. And we have a great fire department with, you know, great equipment and a great chief. And yeah, so I think this is, you know, it's a cost, but it's one that obviously the value is there. So it's let's keep going forward with the fire department. So.
Can I cut in there for 2 seconds? Sorry, I'm just gonna jump in and say guys and gal.
Guys and gals, my apologies.
Go ahead, sorry.
And I know you said the cost is more, but if we went and bought it next year, it's gonna be more than that, so.
Absolutely.
So like,
Absolutely.
does it hurt? Yes, but like you said, we're gonna have it for the next 20 years, and take the Band-Aid off now or take it off later, it works out to being the same.
Correct. Yeah. But as I say, certainly appreciate the support of this council. I think on the weekend, you know, when we did have our event, we have some beautiful equipment, as Jeff said, upkept very well, and that all comes from the taxpayers of this community, and it's very well deserved for this community.
I think also, sorry, but it's clearly taken care of very well, which is it's a key point. It's one thing for us to say, yeah, we want to get that stuff, but when you see it all, it's even some of the older stuff, it's well taken care of, it's clean. So like the respect that also is going with that equipment is duly noted too as well. So it makes that decision even easier in that sense because of how well it's taken care of.
Perfect. Yeah. I think I'm a little hard, but hey, it is what it is.
And
the hardest part is, it's a big chunk of money, but when you need that piece of equipment, that's when you're extremely grateful.
Absolutely.
And we're lucky to have it in the community.
Absolutely.
So if there's no more, moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll, seconded by Councillor Kenny, that council advise staff to award RFP FD 2023-01 for one pumper tanker to Fort Garry Fire Truck Limited for the cost of $658,000, including non-recoverable HST. All in favor? And that's carried. Evaluate. Next is our junior planner for a zoning bylaw update.
Good evening, Council. So the report you have before you is with respect to the required zoning bylaw update. And at our meeting in March, it was directed for staff to enter in or to prepare a draft agreement with JP2G for the provision of the planning services that would be required to finalize the update of our zoning bylaw. And attached to this report is a copy of the draft agreement for your consideration. It has been reviewed by myself and the clerk. It seems to check all the boxes. The anticipated time frame for completion of the zoning update is approximately, I believe it's 8 months. Could be shorter. And the budgeted amount set out in the agreement schedule is $15,000, which is significantly under the $25,000 that was budgeted, and that's due to my assistance with this. So that we're coming in a little bit lower, which is nice, and it's I'm looking forward to being a part of that process. So if anyone has any questions.
Questions? Comments? So moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll that council authorizes the Reeve and clerk to enter into an agreement with JP2G Consultants Inc. for the provision of professional planning services associated with the updated zoning bylaw 3478-2015. All in favor? And that's carried. Next are reports of committee. So moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that the council approve the minutes of the Committee of Whole meeting of May 2nd, 2023, and approve the recommendations contained within. All in favor? That's carried. We have no petitions, and for bylaws, moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Kenny, that bylaw 3989/2023, a bylaw to enter into an agreement with JP2G Consultants, Inc. for planning services associated with the update of zoning bylaw 3478/2015, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed the 16th day of May, 2023. All in favor? And that's carried. Next is moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll, that bylaw 3990-2023, a bylaw to amend bylaw 3943/2022, a bylaw to appoint members to boards, committees, and other statutory positions, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed the 16th day of May, 2023. All in favor? And that's carried. No motion and notice of motion. So our action items on 8C was with reference to a resolution for retaining surplus proceeds from tax sales with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. This one I had asked Ali if she would bring forward for us. Considering it's our staff that do all the work, it's only right that we get to keep the money. So I think this is a resolution that we should be addressing. Did you want to speak to anything else?
Sure, Chair. So just for background, municipalities, whenever there was a property that would go to tax sale, for any proceeds over and above the taxes, it gets put into a fund for a year. And at such time, the township used to be able to apply to get those monies if other creditors or owners didn't apply for them. Now they automatically go to the province. But as the Reeve has said, we do all of the background work. It's all of staff time, trying to collect, sending notices, all those things. So it would be nice to have that legislation reversed and have the ability for the municipality in the event, because sometimes it's a deceased person and the family is not even aware of the property, or maybe there is no further family. So it would be nice for us to be able to apply for those funds and it not just strictly go to the province.
When did that change?
17, I believe. Yeah.
So moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Crabtree, whereas prior to being repealed by the Modernizing Ontario's Municipal Legislation Act 2017, Section 380, subsection 6 of the Municipal Act 2001 allowed for a municipality to retain surplus proceeds from tax sales within their jurisdiction. And whereas the public tax sale process is burdensome to a municipality who invest a considerable amount of time and money recovering these proceeds for the potential sole benefit of the Crown in right of Ontario, now therefore be it resolved that a letter be sent to all relevant taxation bodies, including the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Finance, John Jordan MPP, the Association of the Municipalities of Ontario, and all other municipalities in Ontario, urging them to reinstate previous legislation that permitted a municipality to apply for and retain the surplus proceeds from a tax sale in this jurisdiction. All in favor? That's carried. Next is the support for reducing municipal insurance. And this has always been a huge one with reference to municipalities and 1% liability. Therefore, we're looking to have municipal insurance possibly reduced for all municipalities, to come up with a way that insurance, whether it be through combined, but try and be reduced. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Kenny. Whereas the costs of insurance are having a significant impact on municipal budgets in Montague Township and around the province. Now therefore be it resolved that Council direct administration to engage with other municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and any other relevant municipal associations to determine what tools may be available to reduce insurance costs, including cooperative purchasing of insurance, creation of a municipal reciprocal insurance provider, or legislative changes to address insurance costs to municipality. And further, that Council direct administration to forward this motion to all other municipalities in Ontario, the local member of Parliament, the local member of provincial Parliament, seeking support and collaboration on this issue. All in favor? And that's carried. I'll check to see if there's any questions of our audience.
None online.
No, anything further? Okay. Moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Kenny, that bylaw 3991/2023, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on Tuesday, May 16th, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed the 16th day of May, 2023. All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll, that council adjourn the regular meeting of May 16th, 2023 at 6:27 p.m. until June 6th, 2023 at 6 p.m. or at the call of the chair. All in favor? And that's carried.
Welcome back to our Committee of the Whole meeting. So opening the meeting, I'll start with our land acknowledgement that the council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located and this meeting is being held is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. So the adoption of the agenda, so moved by Councillor Abbas. Who wanted to?
You have to change because he didn't make it.
Yes, you're right. Who wants to be the victim?
Okay.
There we go. So moved by Councillor Reeve Jennings and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that the Committee of the Whole agenda dated May 16th, 2023 be approved as presented. All in favor? That's carried. So the first thing, there's no delegations, there's no, so the first report of the municipal officers is Mr. Rothwell on the Pinery Road agreement.
Thanks, Chair. The report before you, it actually does not have the agreement, unfortunately, on it. The letter of support is attached, but I was trying to get ahead of the game, and unfortunately, we did not receive it from legal. The letter of support is something that is very important for this agreement as well. It's something that the other party is really anxious to get back and know that we're supportive of this, as that's kind of a condition of the agreement. When this moves forward to council, there will be the agreement provided to council to review, and if there's any changes, whatever, it will be added to the agreement as well. So the main sticking point with this land exchange is in regards to the alleged Weedmark Road allowance from Weedmark Road to Pinery Road. So there was a mapping error which listed this as a road, and many residents have believed for many years that that was a road allowance and have used it and crossed this individual's property, using it as if it was a road allowance. We did extensive land searches, title searches, pretty well every search we could do. I reviewed surveys in the back vault. Spent a lot of time trying to find and make sure this was our road, and unfortunately there was nothing that either legal could find that stated it did belong to the township. So it appears that it was a mapping error, and the letter of support in that's attached to this report tonight is basically just saying that we acknowledge that the property does not belong to the township, and we support the property owner erecting fences on each end, as it is his right to do so, as there's no land that crosses his land that belongs to the township. So that's the main thing that they were looking for in this agreement, is this letter of support, which is before you. So this is an important step to get this deal done, which has been, I believe it's early 2000s as well, trying to get this land as well. A couple other things that have been done, like engineering, survey, the land clearing, as per the 2022 budget. This has all been completed. Once an agreement has been signed by council, the survey will be registered, and then it's basically a shovel-ready project for next year or whenever council feels it's time to complete this project. It's important to note, there is also a couple road allowances farther east on William Campbell. So the connecting links, if there is development ever in that area, and whenever that may be, there is options for council to move forward with connecting those two roads. So this doesn't really hinder any roads from Pinery to William Campbell. And I guess, as Miles says, any questions?
Miles just tries to get a little shorter, but yeah, I think thanks. I think one of the big things is we understanding that that road allowance. So right now we think it's a mapping error. So if there's anything in the future that happens where we find that it's not a mapping error, that letter basically kind of states that then we will proceed with doing a stop up and close, all that kind of idea. But this is a good way of also saving some money too as well by not going down that route, by acknowledging this.
Yeah, that's important to add for sure. It's basically in the letter, it does say that if in time something does come up that it does belong to township, then this is saying we support moving forward with stopping up and closing that and the costs to go along with it. There is substantial cost to that, so I believe this letter is a good kind of bridge to that. I don't believe that'll ever come up, as we pretty well did every title search we can. It was pretty extensive searching, but there is that possibility that will be cost down the road if something was to ever come up. But again, I do not see that being likely to that will come up, but that will be a cost if that does happen.
Then we'll deal with that. But we kind of crossed the T's and dotted the I's till then to get there. So then if
that's right,
we can fix that down the road. We can not spend the money now and hopefully never have to spend that money in the future.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a good clear up. And yeah, I think this is another step for to make this road safer, which is was talked about years ago, and I think it's great that we're following through on it. So on that note, if there's any questions from council, I mean, we're kind of just going through this process right now. I think so. If there are any questions on this, yeah.
Have we been grading and clearing the snow on that road?
No, there's been no maintenance in ever on that roadway. It's strictly a road allowance is what it was always alleged to be. So really, it's a glorified little four-wheeler trail that people have been technically trespassing and using on this individual's property.
Yeah, not one of our municipal roads or part of our at all.
There's never been any
Okay.
municipal
No,
maintenance on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So realistically speaking, he doesn't need our permission to put up fences. He could just do it.
You're 100%
Now that you've
correct.
done the background title search and figured out that we don't actually have any paperwork to say otherwise.
Yeah, that's correct. And more or less for the landowner now, he has paperwork basically saying that there is support from the township for him to have these fences and for people to cut them or whatever. He's kind of has something to go back on. So.
Yeah, so clearing up the mess as we move forward, making that road safer and better, and taking those extra steps. So
Yeah.
great, thanks, Steve. Yeah,
Thanks,
I think
Council.
that's good. Yeah. So moving on with that, then. We'll move by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Kenny. The councillor authorized the clerk administrator and the Reeve to enter into a land exchange agreement with the landowner of 1419 Pinery Road, and the council authorized the clerk administrator and Reeve to sign the letter of support clarifying that the section of Weedmark Road is not municipal property. All in favor? Carried. And now what everybody's been waiting for. Kirsten will be talking about our chickens.
Everybody?
What's that?
Everybody's been waiting?
I think it's been yes.
Okay. I never realized chickens were such a hot topic.
And Montague
Okay.
there.
Pardon me?
And Montague there.
They are. So at our April 4th meeting, a report was presented to the Committee of the Whole, documenting the zoning provisions that local municipalities had in place with respect to backyard chickens. And there were 3 municipalities identified: Beckwith, Carlton Place, and Drummond North Elmsley. So attached to the report were those provisions contained in each of their bylaws. Some of them pretty short and sweet, and some of them, such as the town of Carlton Place, very lengthy. So council did direct staff to obtain additional information so that they could make an informed decision how they wanted to move forward. And the information they were looking for included complaints, so frequency of complaints that these 3 municipalities that have these backyard chicken provisions, how often does it happen and how are they addressed? A breakdown of the property sizes in Montague and benefits of having backyard chickens. So I did speak with planning and bylaw enforcement staff at the 3 municipalities, and the complaints have been pretty minimal with respect to chickens. I think the biggest complaint would be roosters. And obviously if a complaint were received, then it would be addressed based on the municipality's enforcement procedures that they had in place. I did want to make a note that the ability to have livestock is it's addressed in the township zoning bylaw, and there are provisions in the Planning Act that if someone contravenes a provision of the zoning bylaw, there is the ability to fine that individual up to $25,000. I'm not saying that you would go in at $25,000 if someone were to complain, but you have the ability to fine up to $25,000 and $10,000 for each day afterwards. I'm not sure what the ceiling might be. I can't imagine it would go on forever. The second item that was addressed was a breakdown of the property sizes, and I believe Councillor Kenny was interested in that. So the clerk and myself did a review of MPAC's data, and there's a breakdown in the report that identifies that there are approximately 191 properties between 0.5 and 0.99 acres, 568 between 1 and 2.99, and 146 between 3 and 5. And so that information excludes commercial, industrial, and special purpose properties. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that all of those properties that are noted are currently occupied by a dwelling, but those are the properties that would have the potential of supporting a dwelling if it was appropriate. The third item was the benefits of having chickens. So I'm one of those people that if I'm going to tell you the good, I'm going to also tell you the bad. So I thought it would be beneficial to put a survey out there just to kind of gauge the community's interest in having chickens. You know, what are your concerns? What are the reasons you would want them, and to get their input as to the direction that they thought was appropriate. So I created a survey and I got 187 responses. And I don't know if that's good. Is that a good
I think
response?
that's pretty good.
That's good. People are passionate about chickens. So the results of the survey are included, but I'll just kind of give the highlight reel. So I asked, do you have chickens? And I just want to sort of go back. There was no identifier, so I don't know your name, I don't know your address. So there was none of that. So people hopefully were honest in their answers. So I asked, do you have chickens? And 27% said yes, 73% said no. One person didn't want to answer. I'm not quite sure why, yes or no, but they just chose to skip that one. And then the second question was, currently chickens are only permitted in rural and agriculture zoned properties of a certain minimum size. And for reference, sorry, I skipped that one. Yeah, rural and agricultural zone properties of a certain minimum size. And do you think chickens should be allowed anywhere where residential uses are permitted? So 77% said yes, 23% said no. I wasn't surprised by that response. And then in asking if they were interested in having chickens, 61% said yes, 20% said no, and 19% were undecided. The next question was, why might you be interested in having chickens on your property? And the answers that I received were pretty much anticipated. So the number one reason people want eggs for their household. And the second one was to reduce household waste. And the third most popular answer was that chickens are a fun and educational opportunity. There were other items as well. To sell eggs, pets, tick control. Eggs are expensive. Chickens are therapeutic. Got a lot of different answers there. And then I asked what concerns people had about having chickens on these undersized lots. And the number one answer was that people were concerned about the predatory wildlife and rodents. And the second was the smell, and third was the noise, and all of those were pretty much anticipated. Some of the other comments were roosters are loud, bird flu, traffic concerns, roaming of chickens, the appearance of chicken coops, reduction in property value, and even fear of birds. There were people that are scared of birds. So I asked if guidelines were written to allow backyard chickens. What considerations do you think would be the most important? The number one answer was cleanliness. So that again was very much anticipated, followed by a requirement for a fenced yard or an enclosed run. And then tied at third was no roosters and the size of the coop. And the size of the coop would be regulated because they have to be under 10 meters squared. Otherwise, they trigger minimum distance separation through OMAFRA. So backyard chickens, a smaller number, is in my opinion, appropriate. The next question was, if backyard chickens were permitted, how many do you think would be appropriate? The majority of people said up to 6, 44%. There were answers that ranged anywhere from 0 to 99. And then comments, as many as I want, as many as, it depends on the size of the property. If my neighbor said it was okay, how far is this chicken coop from my neighbors? And the final question was, if backyard chickens were permitted on undersized lot, what minimum lot size do you feel would be appropriate? And the 42% said between 1 and 2 acres, 37% said less than 1 acre, and 10% said between 2 and 3, 4% said between 3 and 4. So as we discussed earlier, we are in the process of updating our zoning bylaw. So staff's recommendation is that we address an amendment to deal with backyard chickens in that zoning update. The process for updating a municipal-wide zoning bylaw is a lot more extensive than it is when you're doing a site-specific zoning amendment. You have to have publication in the newspaper because you're not doing mail outs to people within a certain distance. There's going to have to be considerable pre-consultation, and I would want to have that conversation with agencies such as the Health Unit and the Conservation Authority. They need to be a part of that pre-consultation discussion, just to make sure that from the health and safety perspective, all of those boxes are being checked. So after that pre-consultation, then there would be an open house or a public meeting, and I'm going to gather from the response from the survey that we might want to move that somewhere else if that was the avenue that we would be taking, because I don't know if you'd have enough space in this room to accommodate the number of people that I will anticipate would want to be a part of that discussion. It's lengthy. You're looking at a few months' time before a zoning amendment would be completed if we just dealt with the chickens on their own as opposed to being part of the whole zoning bylaw update. There is an expense, again, associated with staff time, consultations, because some of those agencies do charge a fee for providing comments, and as well as assistance and comments from our planning consultant. He would be a part of that process if we did them independently. So again, in my report, I have recommended that we deal with the chickens as part of our municipal-wide zoning update, but I'm happy to take questions and comments, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Kirsten.
You're welcome.
Before I open up real quick though, so I guess the idea of going to putting it part of the zoning like update that we're doing, is that sort of, it'll be drafted up with some ideas in there that we would then discuss as we go forward, as far as like the lot sizes and all that kind of?
So as part of the zoning update, the planner that would be spearheading that project would have, would attend at council, sort of like the issues and options that are done when there is the official plan update process undertaken. And so those comments can all be collected at that point.
So like just, yeah, so like, I guess to save time a little bit tonight, even in that sense, like getting into a discussion of what we think for this size and that size and that, and numbers of chickens and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of a moot point, because we're gonna have that discussion if we go ahead with, obviously, and going that route. So I just want to kind of preempt that for all of us. So if we want to drive into that conversation, it's not one that we necessarily need to right now. We can have that conversation when that, if we get into agreement that that's what we want to do as far as the amendment. So I'll preempt that just so we don't get into this thing. I think we should have this many chickens again. We can have that discussion, because that could take a while, and we might as well just do that at that one time. So so on that note, is there any questions that we might have right out of the gates? Regen?
Just in your report, you've noted that Beckwith and Drummond North Elmslie do have provisions in their zoning bylaw, but Carleton Place opted to do a specific bylaw on just chickens.
So I did ask Carleton Place, because they're on a different type of system. They have a development permit system as opposed to a zoning bylaw. So when I did reach out to municipalities to ask what provisions they had in place, they sent me their backyard hen bylaw, very extensive bylaw, as you can see. And I did inquire as to why that wasn't part of their zoning bylaw amendment, and I believe it's something that has to be incorporated into it, because their it needs to be incorporated into their development permit bylaw, because their development permit bylaw that they have published specifically states that livestock is not permitted in the town of Carleton Place. So those are two sort of bylaws that are in opposition to each other. So if you have a zoning bylaw that says that agricultural uses, which include chickens, are only allowed in certain areas, the amendment has to be to the zoning bylaw, and it can't be something else. When I saw that, I thought that there might be an opportunity that we could do it to sort of circumvent, but no.
I just wanted the clarification so the public would know why. So thank you.
Right.
Yeah. And then, sorry, follow up. So just so the public's aware as well, that the chickens will come through once the zoning bylaw amendment has come into place. So everything remains status quo until that gets updated.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So going through this, you're looking a year plus before this would be able to come.
Probably be the spring of next year that the zoning bylaw update would be
because
completed.
You said you have to do the new bylaw, you have to do the meeting with the public and everything else, right?
You're speaking the zoning update that we're working on, like the total, okay. Yes, so the report that was presented earlier sort of has the chronology of the events that have to take place, and that does include public meetings and circulations, agency comments, and probably a few visits to council with updates on the status of that zoning update. Now, just to kind of point out that when it comes to people who may have chickens already on lots that shouldn't have chickens, it doesn't necessarily mean that the township is driving around looking for those chickens, but if a complaint is received, then bylaw would attend, and if they're in contravention, then they would be asked to no longer have chickens or roosters or whatever they have.
Here's my update.
Yeah, so a follow-up with reference to the contraventions of our zoning bylaw in the fine totals, et cetera. Is that comparable to the other rural municipalities that have it in their zoning bylaw?
Are you referring to the,
25,000?
that's in the Planning Act,
Right.
so that's applicable to everyone.
So that's just not specific to Montague.
Not a Montague
Correct.
thing. but
Correct.
Correct.
But yeah,
Perfect,
basically
thank you.
And I would
dictated to us.
imagine that, this wouldn't trigger a fine of that magnitude. I mean, obviously, we want to work with people,
Correct.
I believe those are up to,
Yep.
Yeah,
I just wanted
we're not
to
going to start
clarify
at
too, because it says
25.
contravention of the township zoning bylaw, the Planning Act contains these. So just those values are consistent across
They are.
Ontario because of the Planning Act.
That's provincial.
Yeah,
And I mean, Kirsten touched on it. I mean, we know that there's chickens on properties that are less than 5 acres that are, working nicely with their neighbors. And that's the biggest thing about, living in a rural municipality is working with your neighbors and recognizing that. And we haven't had really very, very, very few issues. I think the one that I know of over the years has been, and there's been a rooster involved with it. But overall, I think it's been very good, and I think a lot of people, even by the survey, tells us that there's a strong interest, and I think there's also obviously an interest from council too as well to make sure that we're making those changes. But like a lot of things in government, they don't happen overnight, but we're moving forward with that, I think, which is important. And yeah, so just keep being cordial with your neighbors and enjoy your chickens if that's what it is, and let's move this process forward, and I think that's great. So is everybody in agreement with that option too as well? Perfect.
so just to clarify too, the biggest thing is roosters are not to be kept. That's the thing, because that's where a lot of the complaints are.
That's the biggest nuisance complaint is
Yep.
roosters.
And I know there are some out there already,
Yeah.
so,
you're meaning for people who are not supposed to have chickens. who have
Correct.
Yeah, I
chickens.
was like,
Correct.
sounds like perfect.
Yeah, no.
You're suggesting not having a rooster amongst their illegal
correct,
chickens?
correct. Because that's the part that's gonna get you caught.
That's the friend. I
It's a
mean,
real wink, wink, nudge,
Yeah,
nudge
yeah.
over there, Karen. Like, just so you know, if you're
We're-
gonna do it, don't have roosters.
we are
I know they're out there.
Yeah, we are a rural municipality. We have country living. I think we want to make sure that we're respecting our neighbors. I think that's the biggest thing is like, don't do things that cause sort of that attention towards you. I mean, like we want people to enjoy their land, enjoy their living and all that stuff. So, but do it while you are also being respectful of your neighbors. I think that's the number one thing. It's your land, but also it is your land as you're being respectful to your neighbors and people around you. So anyways, I think that's, you did a lot of information on chickens for us. This is great. I'm sure there has been some dinner talk at people's houses saying like, do you believe in Montague's talking about chickens and everything else? Anyway, so
Well,
I think
actually, I will point out that the municipality so when I was trying to find potential survey questions, I Googled it, and the municipality of Chatham, Kent,
yeah.
I believe is going through this exact same process at the exact same time. So they were very generous in sharing their survey questions that I somewhat modified to fit our municipality. And I believe their report is scheduled to come out to their council in the next month or so. Yeah, so we're pioneers somewhat, but yeah.
I think it's a big surprise to people where like if you had asked me a couple of years ago, I mean, I knew that we had the 5 acre for livestock, but I didn't think it affected chickens. I think most people would, you know, they're sitting on 3 acres of land, they have a couple of chickens, they probably don't even know that that was against the rules. So I think that's another one of those things too as well. It's, you know, and it hasn't been a problem. So obviously we want to try to correct something that has not been a problem, I think. So it's but once again, I think we have a lot of information, and I think, you know, we're not making this as a ho-hum decision. We have, you know, good feedback and we have good information. So I think that's great. So
Great.
on that note, so moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Reeve Jennings, that council approve option 1 for the reduced lot size for chicken report. All in favor? That's carried. That's fantastic. So moving on to the next part of the meeting is that we are hiring a part-time person. So take it away, Ally.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an information item to council to advise that we have hired a part-time janitor that will be starting tomorrow for the municipal complex. So that's us, fire and public works, lunch and washroom, not the whole garage. Katie Hamill, we did have 2 applications, and Katie Hamill is the successful applicant for the part-time janitor for the municipal complex, and will also be a backup for our 2 casual on-call janitors at Rosedale Hall. So we'll have a good selection of people to assist there as well.
That's great. Ally, is any comments or questions from council at all about that? I mean, the Hamills are everywhere right now in our township, which is fantastic. I mean, Katie has done amazing things with our rec group. I mean, her husband is obviously a massive person in our public works and our fire department. So I mean, like, thank you to the, you know, it's once again just these great people in our township. I think Katie is going to be a great addition to as well to keeping our place clean.
And thank you to staff for covering
And yeah,
for the interim.
that's great that they, because you know what, the building still didn't fall apart and garbage isn't on the floor and everything else, which is fantastic. So well done, staff. But I'm sure they're going to be very excited to have having Katie around. So that's great. So moved by Reeve Jennings, seconded by Councillor Abbas. That gosh darn it. Who wants to do it? Councillor Crabtree. Can make sure you spell it right too. Moved by Reeve Jennings and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that council accept the part-time janitor at the municipal complex report as information. All in favor? So we're going to move on to the annual Integrity Commissioner report, and Ally is going to update us on that.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an annual report that's presented from our Integrity Commissioner, Tony Fleming from Cunningham Swan. The 2022 annual report is in front of you this evening. We budget $10,000 per year for council members to either reach out whenever they might have questions in relation to pecuniary interest, and or for complaints received from the public and investigations by the Integrity Commissioner. So in 2022, we did spend $2,671, well under our $10,000 budget, and there's nothing of any warranted significant concern in the annual report. So the recommendation is for council to accept it as information.
Thanks, Sally. I mean, it's obviously important to have an Integrity Commissioner so we can have to make sure if there's any problems or the complaints to be done. But I think it's a duly noted too as well. Like, so there's a cost associated with advice. There was 2, I believe, and it says $310. And the cost associated with complaints, which there was 2 complaints, and that was $2,600. So it's worth the call to ask a question if you're unsure of something, because obviously that cost is a lot less than when they have to go forth with an actual complaint, and also making sure that people are aware if you are going to put a complaint that to make sure that that complaint is not frivolous, as it does cost us money. But obviously, if there is a need for that, we want that call to happen. But it will cost money, so making sure that it's being done in an appropriate manner to make sure we're not wasting money in that sense too as well. So on that note, is there any comments as far as that goes? Thank you, Reeve Jennings, for making sure that. No questions? We're good? All right, so Councillor Kenny, you've been nominated for this one. So moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that council accept the 2022 Annual Integrity Commissioner Report as information. All in favor? That's carried. We have another truck on here, but it's a little bit cheaper than the last one we bought. So I think Ali's going to talk about that one.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this for information. Council did approve the purchase of a half-ton. Staff did go out and test drive and look at a couple of the trucks that were presented to council. The purchase was with Hinton Dodge for 2022 Dodge half-ton that came in at $53,805. It did have some additional accessories to some of the other vehicles that were on the list, actually at a higher cost. So it was even indicated, we deal with Hinton for service on our other Dodge that we did not purchase there either, and we get exceptional service. So I think that it's going to work out really well for us. It was noted that other municipalities are also going the same route with the demo of 1,000 kilometers on the truck, because there's savings of about $6,000 of not going through the tendering process and having to go through as a municipal purchaser. When it's a demo, we can just go through as a regular purchase. So I think it's good news and an exceptional price for the truck that was received. It is actually out in the parking lot. It's the black Dodge out there. And we'll be getting some decals or decals for it and those type of things.
Great. Any questions from council at all? We have our new truck, so that's good. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Kenny that council accept the report of the new half-ton that was purchased as information. All in favor? That's carried. So the next one is the summer day camp idea. Take it away, Ali.
Thank you, Chair. So I believe this is a relatively new idea to the Township of Montague. If I'm wrong, Council, but I think it's a new idea. So we did apply for the summer experience program for summer students to work with both of our libraries and recreation to come up with some programming throughout the summer that would be at Rosedale Hall. We were not successful. But council also set aside $2,600 in our donation line for potentially to be used for programs that we might put on if we had received those students. So with discussing with staff, we've kind of come up with a solution without having the students to do a trial run this year for a week-long summer camp. At Rosedale, they would be ages 6 to 12, $50 per child for the week. And it would be 5 children per adult or student. So we would be pulling the administrative assistant. Hopefully at that time we'll have a deputy clerk that could fill in at the front as the admin assistant is taken away, and pull 2 of these summer students from Public Works, which Public Works approved for us to do as well, for the week to put on a day camp at Rosedale Hall that would consist of program days. So you might have, we also spoke with the fire chief of potentially pulling them for a day to bring out the trucks, maybe do a barbecue with the kids, that type of thing. So this is a recommendation. We're looking to use some of the funds that were in the donation line to be used if we receive students. And obviously we'll have some revenue coming back if children sign up for the week as well. This is kind of a trial run to see if it's something that the residents are interested in having, if it's something that we should be looking more in depth on. I'm I know in other municipalities that I've worked at, we've done this and it's been really successful where it went from 1 week to 3 or 4 weeks provided throughout the summer. So it's in front of council this evening to see if there's interest from council in us furthering this, as it is May. So we'd be looking at, you know, getting this rolling and posted if there is interest from council.
Thank you, Ellie. I think this is a neat idea because obviously it was unfortunate that we did not get the funding for the summer students to be able to run some of the programming too as well. But a lot of it is we don't really have a lot in place. So this could be also a preempt for if we did something like this, when we go to the applications for next year, it could open us up for that funding as we're trying our best to do things that are good for our residents. I think, you know, once again, you know, there's a municipal responsibility to try to do what you can for your residents in a recreational way. I think we've done a lot over the years. I think the seniors are doing more. I think we have a rec committee that's doing more. I think this is just another neat idea. So just kind of on that note, I'd like to open up for council if they have any questions or comments. Gerald.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It makes more sense to be able to apply for stuff if we have something in place that we're actually making a conscious effort, even though it has a cost to us. It opens up to say, hey, well, they're going to do it with or without us. You know, maybe we can help them and make it better, bigger or better. So I think it's a great idea, and it's a way to give back to the community and give them another option of something for their kids to do for a week. So yeah.
I'm surprised we don't have people pulling in right now to register their kids at $50 for the week. Like, that's amazing. Yeah, we can do that. I think that's great.
So Negative Nelly's going to say that I am a little concerned at the 50 week because that is very low. I mean, I know that it's new to start off with, but I mean, at $10 a day, you know, and I mean, it's going to be a first come, first serve, but I mean, it's definitely got to be residents that reside in the township, not our babysat in the township. It has to be residents, but the $50 a week, that 10 a day is a little worrisome compared to. But anyway.
Yeah, and I think
I know it's the first year.
Yeah.
But it's just, I mean, that's it. At $10 a day, we are going to be bombarded, and so.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Chair, through you, we know that $50 a day or $50 for the week is extremely low for providing a full day camp for 5 days. Our concern is that we don't want expectations from someone when it's our first year and us not meet those. We're kind of using it as a trial to get feedback to say, you know, what do you think would be a reasonable price moving forward? What would you like to see? Would you be willing to pay extra to have maybe day things and those type of things? We know that they're gonna have to bring a lunch other than the one day potentially that if Fire does a barbecue with the kids. So we'd have some snacks and it would be building some of those kind of items like the arts and crafts things and we would need those, but we would have some of those things moving forward as well. So by all means, we're open, and that's why the options we have $50, $75, and $100 per week. It would definitely be posted first, residents of the municipality, and then if it's not filled, we would look at opening it up.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I think I tend to agree that obviously the $50 a day is quite reasonable. Cheap.
$50 a day.
I don't like using the word cheap,
point,
so it's yeah, exactly, yeah, for sure. And I think that, you know, and I think it's great, you know, as our first kick of the can as far as I don't think this township's ever done anything like this. If it has, I don't remember when I was a kid, and I don't remember in the last you know, whatever 13 years since I've been back in the township. So I think it's another great idea that we can start with, and then, like you say, kind of go on with getting more ideas back and more feedback back, and hopefully it'll help with something for next year too as well. If we can get some, and we could extend it next year because we got some grant funding for some summer students, and we could up the cost a little bit at that point if we're doing that for a little bit longer time. Like the hit to us right now would be somewhat minimal as far as that goes. So I think it's great. So are we all sort of in agreement in the option one for now, or is
Sorry,
it?
one
Yeah, for sure.
question.
Morgan,
Yeah, I just want to make sure for liability insurance reasons that we've checked on that and that is all good. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I know our ratios are really low. 5-to-1 is
Yep.
golden. So,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's why we also chose 6 to 12, the age group that we did. But yes, we're covered as far as that goes.
Basically, that grade 1 to grade 8, sort of the elementary school age.
Yeah.
Is pretty well the or grade 7, I guess, but yeah, perfect. So it's a good trial, I think, for option one, and I think look forward to it, and I'm sure our administrative assistant is very excited to take the lead on it too as well. So it's and thank you for Public Works too as well for giving up their people for the 2 weeks, or for the 1 week as we hold on a second, Carol. I think that's great. I think once again, like it just shows the sort of the give and take that all departments have too as well. And obviously Miles Kerr just loves kids, so he just can't wait to get out there with the fire truck and hose them down. So it's good. So it's thanks again for everybody. So all right. So moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Reeve Jennings that council approves staff move forward with the summer day camp to be held at Rosedale Hall from July 24th to July 28th, 2023 for ages 6 to 12 at the cost of $50 per child for the week. And the council approved the use of $59 from the donation line for the summer day camp. All in favor? So next on the docket is about a staff and council appreciation lunch and golf. And Ali's gonna talk about that.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this has been done, I believe, once in the municipality. Whenever I was here as the treasurer, I know that we did it one time. Might have been prior to.
That wasn't here.
once. Okay,
So
yeah.
it wasn't when I was on council.
Yeah,
for sure.
so it would have been 18 prior to the new council coming on. It hasn't been done since. So again, we're bringing forward, we do have a volunteer appreciation dinner, which staff organizes and decorates and looks after. So this is kind of a separate item that we would be looking to bring all of staff together. The morning would be a training day, so the office would be closed all day. So the morning would be for staff to get training. And I will set up training and bring somebody in to do training depending on what I choose. And the afternoon would be a lunch and golf with all of staff and council if approved. A lot of municipalities do these. Some of them actually use them as fundraisers for recreation committees, or I know whenever I was in Greater Madawaska, it was a Raise the Roof. So we had an annual golf tournament that raised funds to put a roof over our outdoor rink. So it would be nice to potentially start working, like having this on an annual basis and potentially being able to move that into something that becomes a community event as well. And so we're presenting this today for 2023 to start with staff and council, and then potentially grow it to something a little larger that potentially could be like a fundraising event. And whenever you look online, a lot of municipalities do these types of things, because you'll see, I don't know if some of you got the invitation for the Warden's golf tournament already, but not all of council normally goes to that. Not all of staff normally goes to that, right? You have management that gets invited to these things, but some of our boots on the ground don't get to go to those. So it's kind of a nice thing to do and work towards potentially a community event.
So yeah, it's another great way to try to, boost staff morale and try to go that. I mean, we do have a perception thing as we first started with, but I think it's a very good preempt to say that, this is not something that's not done anywhere else. It's done in a lot of different places. And it can lead to a lot of positive results. Right now, out of that, the cost, if we were to go forward with that, where would we be taking that sort of cost out of? Because we obviously didn't budget for that, but I mean, is it?
Yeah, so we have a number of, we've saved substantial wages again in administration by having.
You do a lot of work.
Yeah, so we do have substantial savings there that it could accommodate the event this year. Yeah.
So I think to preempt that into our discussion, I think too as well is that the clerk administrator has worked her tail off to save money in the salary line. So we're kind of talking about utilizing that sort of funds to pay for that side of it too as well, which is very kind of the clerk administrator to do that extra work. So there would be that money there for something that could be an appreciation tool as well, or a very positive thing for the staff. So on that note, if there's any sort of comments as we get into this, it'd be great. Reid Jennings.
So as has been discussed, other municipalities have done things that I'm aware of, for example, would be to go to one of those escape rooms,
yeah.
for example. Other things I've heard of are like the axe throwing and that. So I'm not sure whether it's axe throwing is the worser of the golf for me, just to give you a heads up. But anyway, it's like, stay clear if you're around me for either of them.
We'll wait in the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. I've offered to go and throw darts on the Thursday night event that's being hosted by the fire department, which is great for the community, because I know darts have stopped in some of the other areas and that they're getting a fabulous turnout. But the walls need to be protected, so I'm not throwing darts there either. So, but this is great, and I thank you, because it's very important that in today's where, COVID's been extremely difficult. It's been hard for staff, and it's very unfortunate how they're bearing the brunt of a lot from residents that are decisions that get made by us, for example. And so this is just one small thing that I think we could show an appreciation to them.
If you're getting any other comments at all from yes, for sure, Councilor Caffrey.
I think this is a great idea, like with everybody doing as much work as they do in this township, and everybody going that one step further, and cost savings on roads, doing 3 jobs. There's a lot of work that's been done, and to show appreciation so that we can also have that staff retention also means a lot. We want the staff to know that they're appreciated, and we don't want them necessarily, not that they would, but you want to show them that we want them here, and that we want to keep them here, and they're not looking for jobs elsewhere. I'm not saying this is going to necessarily be the man, that golf tournament, I'm looking forward to that and I'm not leaving, but it's another way to just give a nice pat on the back and just say, hey, thank you very much for everything you guys do on a day-to-day basis, for the small cost versus the massive cost savings that Ali has and everyone else has done throughout the year. I think it's good, and then like you said, next year we could turn around to another thing where we can raise money and do something else, which would be also wonderful to be able to put something else to that.
Any other comments at all, or you're good with that too as well? Yeah, I laugh at the golf thing, because I know for me, like in organizations that I've worked for in the past, everything else in this golf tournament is one of those things I always look forward to. Mm-hmm. I enjoy going to those. They're a lot of fun too as well, and fun to goof around with the people you work with and everything too as well. And I think once again, you just hear the appreciation from council towards our staff too as well. And not just you, Ali, but the rest of the staff too as well. I don't want you to get too big, but I think that appreciation is there. So I think that's fantastic. So let's move forward with that. I got this now. I'm glad you all laugh when I say that. That's good. So moved by Reid Jennings and seconded by Councillor Kenny, that council approve the clerk administrator acting treasurer to organize a lunch and afternoon golf and all staff and council in August of 2023, and that option 1 is chosen for the financial implications. All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, folks.
You'll be pleased to know I've hit a bucket of $40 once.
How was your arm after that?
Well, my arms hurt.
You gotta stretch.
You tell me that.
By August, I'll just be sitting in lodge or something. I won't be. You can join me there.
You can pass out the nice beverages.
Yeah. I'll drive the drink cart.
There we go. Yeah. Be perfect. The next one is an age to compensation and pay equity review. We talked about deferring that. So do we Options, that's this one right here, right?
I think council spoke about deferring it to give some more time,
Time
because it's a
to-
big package. So if you'd like to defer this evening.
That's what this is right here,
deferring
right?
it, Yeah,
So we're saying, so the council direct, what do I say, just
we're
defer?
deferring it to the June 6th meeting.
Okay,
Is that enough time?
Yeah,
June
yeah.
6th?
I think so. I think for the next meeting, I know of myself too as well, going through the document and everything else, and I still want to have a little bit more time and questions, so just before we get into it. And I think I felt that consensus too as well, so I think that's great. So that council directs the clerk administration to with deferring.
Yep, to June 6th.
So moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that council direct the clerk administrator to defer the compensation review report to the meeting of June 6, 2023. I encourage, if you have any questions, sort of bring them up to Ally, just so she's prepared for them too as well. Before the meeting, that'd be great, and then we can address them obviously during the meeting too as well. All in favor? That's carried. The next one is the clerk administrator, Allison, talking about our property standards bylaw. Take it away, Allison.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a recommendation brought forward to us from our new bylaw, Animal Control Enforcement Officer, Municipal Law Enforcement Services, MLES, not Miles. Just everyone sees that and they're like, Miles. So it's MLES, no I. It's coming really from, we've had an influx of property standards calls. Some are from several years of issues that we're dealing with. So he's recommending, based on other bylaws from other municipalities, to have some kind of enforcement in the short form, so that he can lay it there as opposed to going to court and that whole process that costs us money and time for paying for them as well. So this would allow us to lay some fines for people who are not complying with our orders to remedy, because it does cost us for the bylaw officer to attend to these properties several times, because they do personal visits as well and letters, so to try and work with the individuals. So that this is being brought forward. It is fairly standard for other municipalities. Our bylaw is relatively old, it's from 2004. So it did need some updating. It's obviously to come forward with a bylaw to update. This evening is just the recommendation. And it would be the recommendation of staff as well, because we're gonna see some costs coming in from bylaw just based on the number of calls that we've received. And I think once some people start seeing certain properties being dealt with, then we're getting calls from other. So I think somebody had said, oh, there's a new sheriff in town. So there's those kind of comments. So we are getting an influx, so it would be good for us to be able to reimburse some of those funds for people who are not complying.
Thank you, Ally. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, some of these changes that we've had now have brought on somebody with a new, fresh set of eyes too as well. That's dealing with certain things. And I think there's been some positive feedback where people have been happy with certain things being cleaned up. And the only complaints are really the people maybe that are not happy with their area being questioned to be cleaned up. So I think that's fantastic that we're doing that, and it's good to have those set of eyes too as well, to see if there's any holes in our bylaws that could be to be fixed up. I guess, and everything is obviously legal. It should be legal, but I mean, I guess my biggest one is like I have to wonder about like being able to enter a property without a warrant for inspecting the property and that stuff. That's all allowed under our bylaws, and everything's fine as far as that goes.
So Chair, through you, that's true, actually the building code.
Okay,
So these are all sections that are taken from certain codes that should be in our bylaw to give us that as well. So him as not being the CBO can still have that because he enforces the property standards
standards of
bylaw.
bylaw, so that
Yeah.
gives them the ability to do that.
Yeah,
So I think that's good, a good clear up when, sometimes when I read that, I'm like, oh, how can you do that without a warrant? And I think that's a great explanation of it for people that may misunderstand it. On that note, is there any questions? As far as that goes? I see none. So we'll move that by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Kenny, that council approves the property standards bylaw number 2801-2004- part 4, section 8, administration and enforcement, subsection 8.2, be amended by including new subsection 8.22 to 8.2.8, following subsection 8.2.1, semicolon A. And D, that council approve the amendment to property standards bylaw to include Schedule A, Part 1 of the Provincial Offences Act with a short form wording to set fines, and that council directs staff to bring an amendment to bylaw 2801-2004 to the June 6th, 2023 meeting. All in favor? Can we read that again? The last thing on our agenda is the soccer field that's on the school board's property that's beside our 22 acres, and Ali's gonna talk about that.
okay, thank you, Chair. So staff did bring forward a report on the soccer field that was built in 2010. It started in 2009 and was never completed with soccer nets and posts to the February 21st, 2023 Committee of the Whole report. Committee did approve for us to move forward with looking at the cost to fix the field. We had to wait for the snow to disappear. Our public works manager did go out on site with a school board staff member as well to look at the site to determine the work required to bring the field up to standard. So school board staff had indicated that they would provide pricing for their contractor because it's on their property. To date, we hadn't received anything, but we thought it important to bring back to council to kind of give an idea of where we're at. So the public works manager did provide an estimated cost of about $9,900 to do topsoil and grass seed, no watering included in that, to give like a top dressing onto the field. And the school board is open into entering an agreement for us to access the property. You will see on the attached document, not where the rec plan is indicating, as I would be over their septic. So it's a little further down to access the property. Keeping in mind that currently for the community to use that soccer field still, they'd still have to go through the community use, online, book it, provide insurance or pay for the insurance and pay for the rental, depending on what group is using it. And we would need a parking lot for the soccer groups to use it. We need washrooms and we need a path over to the 22 acres. They did also provide a notice that we could take over the rental so that we would basically be responsible for all of the rentals as the municipality, and it would be our insurance. But then at that time, they also would want us to take over all the operational costs of cutting grass, doing lines, and doing all those things. So presented this evening in front of council are a number of options. The recommendation from staff is we do have parkland fees that we collect on severances. The $50,000 that was used from the township in 2010 was from parkland fees for that soccer field, which is supposed to be used towards park areas based on the growth that's happening in the municipality. We haven't used any since then, so we have over $90,000 in there right now to date. And we're recommending that we go ahead and potentially get pricing to strip the topsoil for the parking area at the 22 acres, use that for a sliding hill in the winter months that would be free we've checked with insurance, that's fine, and get that started, and also get pricing to get the walking trails started at the 22 acres with the parkland fees. It's going to make it substantially easier for grant applications in the future when we've started something, because right now it's a vacant property and it's very difficult to try and write grant proposals to say why we need a septic, a well, and a washroom when we have nothing on site. So we do have those parkland fees that are to be used. There has been discussion about putting limited timeframes on when they have to be used by, with some of the provincial legislation that's been coming down lately. So it would be nice to not be shoved into something and have a plan and start using those things and have the community see those funds that they paid for their severances being used somewhere. In the same discussion, I think that we have to really seriously look at if we're going to put $10,000 into a field on the school property, that our ratepayers still have to sign up, pay to rent, and provide insurance to just go kick the ball around with their kid or have a game of ultimate frisbee or whatever the case is. We may be better putting that $10,000 into our side and looking at, you know, getting a soccer field on our side of the property. It's not that we don't want to work with the school board, it's just we're looking at our ratepayers, where I think it may be a frustrating process for it to be there but not be easily accessible as it would be on our 22 acres. So the discussion is in front of council this evening on how to proceed. I think as far as my recommendation would be to proceed with the parking lot. I think there's so many things that we can do with the walking trails in the parking lot alone. Farmers, artesian markets all summer, people can set up there. They can do those types of things. In the winter, we'll have the sliding hill for people to use. And it just gives us a basis for those grant applications that really focus towards recreation and outdoor space a lot, to be able to build off that.
Thanks, Ally. Yeah, I think just to preempt that a little bit too, as well as the you know, we had that soccer field that was done on the school board property as an idea back in 2010. That would be put up, and there would be a great agreement back and forth with the soccer associations, and it would get lots of use. There was unfortunately just not everybody, maybe to put it lightly, playing the way they should in the sandbox to make it work out. And I do have a concern if we go forward again with doing something with what I'm reading so far about it actually being able to be used by our residents, where it's better to have it necessarily on the township's property so we have the control of it if there's stuff being there. So I hate to think about abandoning the soccer field that's over there, but I have concerns that it's not going to get the usage, and I'd rather not sink money into something more that it may not get the usage that that we all would hope for. So I think that's a bit of a thought process. I think of the history too, as well of you know, where it fell apart in the past. So I just want to lay that out there. So if there's any comments from council, I'd be hear that too as well.
Can I just?
For sure.
Thank you, Chair. So another thing, when you look at the diagram and where the entrance to the field was supposed to be, and they indicated that there's septics there, if you look at the growth of that school as well, because during discussions it was kind of discussed that the school would grow out there and the septic would be moving. My fear would be that the septic would be moved to where the field is, and then it would be really a lost
Cause at that point.
Yeah.
That's a good break point too as well. So yes, Councillor Capri.
I think it's a great idea. I think getting started on the parking lot, we've been talking about this for a while now, and this would be a great start, just getting a shovel into the ground, and if we can have a base where we can move forward on that slowly but surely, and if we are able to apply for grants, get something going, and the field, right now, yes, it's a lost cause. It doesn't mean in the future we couldn't eventually tie it in if that's a possibility, and we can take it over while we're taking care of our own grass, tie that in and maybe use it. If not, then, but at least we're not spending another $10,000 and trying to see if we can or can't make something work and invest another $10,000 plus rent of washrooms, cutting of the lawn, creating more work for you guys to do the facilitate of the renting of it as well. And I think it's a lot better to spend the money do like you said and get something that the townspeople can actually use.
Anybody else?
Option 3.
Okay, we got that one down back. So. Councilor Kenny, you know,
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, if we strip the topsoil, what are we looking at for timelines for then when we would be putting in the parking? And if we don't really know what those timelines would be right now, like what the impact would be of having to strip that topsoil and just having it sit. Go ahead.
Chair through you. So we would get pricing with that, and they would have to indicate when they could do it. We wouldn't strip the topsoil until they were ready basically to strip and put the parking lot in.
Okay.
Because otherwise we're gonna have a mess over there.
Yeah.
And we don't want people coming in, parking in that,
stuck.
yeah. So it would be all completed together. But right now it'd be basically moving forward to say, yes, let's get pricing. We would come back to council with that pricing, to advise of what our options were then at that time, to move forward and start that process. I think that because included in that, we should really make sure that the property is surveyed, especially if we're going to start doing walking trails and things like that as well, to make sure that we're on our property. I'd want to work with the rec group as far as the walking trails and all those things as well, and include all of our volunteers in that. So it will be a process, but I think we're early enough now that it potentially could be fall, that we're looking at doing these types of things. So,
and it would move us, and help us move us forward with other grant applications and all that stuff too as well. I think it's the biggest thing. It's when you start doing stuff, then it gives you that legwork in order to go after those grants and basically once again to do more things or offer more things to our community. You know, at the right price, but I mean but basically to give more services, which makes a better community. So.
and Chair, and just that we're using those parkland fees because people are paying in and have been since 2010 and they don't see them going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So that is frustrating on its own, I think, that we're actually starting to work our way, that it's not actually taxpayers' money. These are funds that we collected for this purpose on severances and growth.
Yeah.
That we're starting to work towards that.
And we're going to see them replaced too as well as we go. We're going to see more growth. We're going to see it's $500 per severance, I believe it is, for parkland fees. Am I right on that? Right on that? Yeah. Okay, good. So I mean, like every time we do that, I mean that adds up, you know, pretty quickly. So yeah, that's great. So.
Quick question: have we taken a look at the projected project ourselves and have an idea of what we think it might cost? Like, I'm not asking for a dollar total and saying, but we've done pretty good projecting previously on other stuff. Have we even just to see if the $90,000 would be even remotely close?
So no, we've discussed it, but we haven't, because we wanted to see what council's thoughts were. We obviously wouldn't be doing this in-house. We have a lot of things going on and we don't have a bulldozer, right? So we would be looking at outsourcing this. But we do feel that we would have enough funds in that to do what we're discussing. But I don't want to put a number because we've had the discussions, rough discussions, but we feel like we should have enough funds in there to do that.
Let's
start.
Let's get the approval side of it, saying, hey, yeah, as council, we are interested in making sure that we're moving forward with finding more recreation options for our residents, and then staff can then start tackling that situation. So I think option 3, I agree. I mean, I think it's as much as I'd like to make it work with the other soccer field, I think it's better to make sure that, you know, as a township, we're doing it on our property to make sure that we have the control and we have all of the, you know, we are the only problem. It's not, we're trying to balance back and forth. So. And I mean no disrespect to the Upper Canada School Board whatsoever, just more in the sense that we just want to make sure that we're getting the best usage out of it too as well. So we're all in agreement for option 3.
Are we? Why? Because we're thinking about doing this whole list that's part of option 3 here within the next year. Is that? There's a lot on option 3 here.
So option 3 would be to strip the topsoil, put the granular parking in place, while they would be there with the dozer and the topsoil, potentially look at the walking trails, to get that started as well. And then see what we would have for pricing. And whenever we say build a soccer field, we're not talking about a FIFA pitch on our 22 acres. We're talking about a reasonable field that can be used by regular people. There's nobody of that caliber playing. That's not what we're looking for right now. We're looking just to provide an outdoor space for people to come and use. So we would be looking at getting the pricing, and depending on the availability of contractors, it may be this fall, it may be next spring. But we'll bring a report back to council nonetheless of costs and timing before we proceed with anything. Because we want to make sure that we're within kind of that parkland fee, the monies that we have there, to be able to utilize those. Not the whole plan. We're not going with that whole rec plan that's attached. It's the parking lot, which would then allow for a sliding hill. It would be moved. Walking trail, and we would get pricing on doing some topsoiling of a location on our side for a field.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Reeve Jennings that council approve option 3 for staff to proceed with the soccer field at the I guess for the field, I guess, at the municipal 22 acres. All in favor? So we have no reports of committees, no petitions, no motions or notice of motions, no unfinished business. And before I adjourn, are there any burning questions from the audience? Any questions at all? Okay, Tom?
On Kristen's report from about the chickens, when you had the feedback from the public, it was in acres. And then when you put down here on options, we talk about hectares.
Right.
Some of us older people relate to acres, not hectares.
What's a hectare? What's a hectare?
So when you do the report, if you put acres and then brackets hectares,
Yeah.
something, because I know when my kids were going to school, they learned in centimeters. And when I say to my young lad, oh, make that 4 inches, what's 4 inches? Like,
Yep.
so it's
well
just a point.
Yeah, no, that's good.
1 hectare is 2.471 acres, just to clarify.
That's how I had to look it up.
4.4 of a hectare is 1 acre.
Yeah.
Good question. Maggie, you had a question?
I had a question about the summer day camp.
Sure.
Is there any other group using Rosedale over the summer for a day camp? Wasn't there a French group that had one during, I think, March break, and we're thinking of having?
There was. Yeah, hello.
So the French group, the March break camp was not overly successful. They had one person from Montague utilize it. They have not contacted us back to use it for the summer. We do have a church group using it for a week, half days.
And how does their cost compare to what we're going to charge?
I don't know what their costs are. That's not just, they just rent the hall.
They're free, yeah, because I know there's one in Smith Falls that my kids have done in the past. It was free to go to in the morning and all that stuff too.
Or churches usually do a circulation,
Yeah.
so it goes for Bristol.
Doesn't mean this one is, but I mean it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're charging or if it's just for their congregation. I have no idea.
There is no other summer day camps booked?
No.
We're
Thanks.
still working with the library a bit, are we not? Or is that kind of fun?
So, well, we approve with council, it's not so much a day camp, it'll be tutoring.
Tutoring,
Yeah, math and English tutoring that potentially is going to be,
Stuff, yeah. Ready?
So just to clarify with the CPR, and good for you guys for trying to do that. Making sure that we have one medical CPR per, I'm trying to remember how many kids, but you do have to have somebody with their, if you don't have one, I will volunteer if I'm off work. Just if you need an extra person. And Karen, I'll volunteer to do the golf for you.
It's okay. I got the
That
clubs.
was it, he said,
I've done it once.
that's it, I think paintball would be more fun.
It
Shoot each
hurt.
other.
It's a terrible idea. I've never done paintballing, and all my friends are trying to do it. We're on paintballing. I'm like, I don't go. And they're like, why? Because I'm like, oh, you all try to shoot me. So it's so like, no, yeah, I've never done it. I never will. So that's is there a burning question online?
Yes, so this was sent in earlier this afternoon from a resident about the reduced lot sizes on chickens. It was kind of touched on, but I just wanted to get clarification for sure for them. It says presently the bylaws concerning chickens are not being enforced, probably due to lack of resources. How can the bylaw officer enforce non-compliance if 714 properties from 1 to 5 acres or 805 properties from 0.5 to 5 acres decide to have chickens?
Sure, I'll go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So currently we are a complaint-based driven municipality. By all means, council could decide to have a full-time bylaw officer that drives around and really pushes on everything. I don't think that that's the direction that council is looking at doing at this point. So we are complaint driven. So if we receive complaints, that's when it will be enforced, as far as that goes. So as far as saying it's not enforced, if we don't receive complaints, that's how we send bylaw out. But by all means, if there is, during the public consultation, if there is a big need or desire from the public for full-time enforcement officers that'll be driving around with microscopes on every single property, then council can make that decision, absolutely.
Can I add to that too? Because I feel like this is, like, I think was mentioned that most of our complaints or are roosters and but like roosters on properties that are undersized, right? Because a properly sized property can have a rooster.
That's right.
Correct.
Over 5 acres.
Over 5
Yeah,
acres.
so 1 over
It's the
5 acres,
smaller.
it's already those that are violating the bylaw and then having roosters and getting complaints. So if we change the bylaw, those people won't be violating the bylaw. There'll be no need for that kind of enforcement. Right?
Yes.
That's sort of how I'm wrapping my head around it. It's like the violation is that they have chickens they're not supposed to. Change the bylaw, they'll be allowed to have chickens.
Yeah.
No need for enforcement.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, this question was also kind of sent before the meeting. So like, I think, scroll back in the meeting and listen to our conversation about about what we talked about, and I hope that clears it up. And if it doesn't clear up, I mean, they can always reach back out and we can clarify that question, so. Did you have a comment on that though?
Yeah.
Okay, like, comment on it before.
Like you said though, it's going back for public consultation. They'll have an opportunity, like right now, as we can read it, people are saying lot sizes of 1 acre plus. We'll have more public consult and we'll be able to go from there. So absolutely, I completely agree.
Yeah, perfect.
So secondary question, they're wondering if it is a conflict of interest for the janitor of the municipal complex.
None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
Just to clarify.
No, I'm just answering. None whatsoever, yeah.
And just to clarify that, our recreation committee is solely volunteer.
Yeah.
They don't get paid any kind of stipend to be on that committee. So it's not a conflict for that.
All right then. On that note, any other burning questions at all, or? Man, we talked about chickens tonight and agenda and all kinds. It was one of the most interesting meetings we've had so far of this new council. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So I'd say.
I have a question.
Oh.
It actually stems back to the chickens.
I shouldn't have said it.
Well, I've been really thinking about it, and it hasn't been until I got another dog, and picking up said dog's feces, and the difference, like, to a dog compared to a couple of chickens. I mean, to me, the chickens would be a cleaner animal than the dog. Like, seriously, because, like, I mean, what the waste that the dog's producing, and you're getting rid of waste with the chicken because they eat almost anything, and they eat ticks. So, I mean, with our tick problem lately, and not being able to spray on properties, it's kind of like, and people will have pigeons and they have other weird birds and this and that. Why are chickens picked on?
But not being picked on, I think we're just trying to clean up.
No, but I mean,
Like
like,
an
just
old,
that it's, not that they're being picked on, just like,
pecked
that
on
they're
or
not
anything.
more accessible to have it on there. Do you know what I mean? Like for just.
And I think the interesting part about the poop side of it too as well is the dog poop is more toxic, where the chicken poop is actually a fertilizer. So I mean, it's
Spread them on your gardens.
I mean, we get it, so it's
There actually is a reason behind it. There is a toxicity with birds themselves. So yes, in moderation, anything is good. It's goes back to how many. What are you doing with it? Are you getting rid of it? Are you utilizing it? So it's and again, certain people shouldn't have dogs. Certain people shouldn't have chickens.
Certain people should have a lot of things for sure. Yeah. On that note, let's close this up. So moved by Councillor Reeve Jennings, seconded by Councillor. I'm just going to keep picking on Kenny.
That's your dog.
Reeve Jennings and seconded by Councillor Kenny that the committee of the whole meeting of May 16, 2023 now be adjourned at 7:51 p.m. All in favor? Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks.